What's up, Tampa? It is March. Actually, it is Friday the 13th.
Yeah, for the second
March
month
13th.
in the road.
For those of you just two in a row. Right. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Well, hey, for those of you just joining us, welcome to Tampa Talk. I'm John.
And I'm Dahlia. Thanks for listening in.
All right, what are we talking about today?
Well, we've got a big political story involving the state attorney general and Tampa's mayor, a new law aimed at protecting survivors of domestic violence, a national recognition opportunity for the Tampa Riverwalk, and some concerning news about the region's water supply. But first, this week in the work.
Yeah, so this week in the work, the first thing that comes to mind, and I don't have a particular thing to point to, that's kind of the point, managing complexity.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is specifically what is unique about WellBuilt cities is the fact that we have put ourselves into a complex ecosystem where, you know, a lot of nonprofit professionals benefit from thinking about a singular social issue.
Yeah.
And therefore they can really invest in it and put a lot of time and energy behind really deeply understanding that one issue. Now, we take an ecosystem approach. We take an approach that says, hey, these things are impossible to separate. And in order to truly have our vision for a well-built city, we need to be well-versed. What's that? How does it go? A jack of all trades is a master of none, but it continues to be like, but blah, 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 blah.
There's more to the quote.
There's more to the quote.
Yeah.
And the rest of that quote is like the important part where it says, you know, it is important to be a jack of all trades. Because when you're a jack of all, let's see, the full quote. Here we go. A jack of all trades is a master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one.
Interesting.
That's the whole quote. And I do think that's true for our work, but it adds complexity. And so it is hard sometimes, you know, we have these hats on where one day I'm deep in the weeds and I'm talking about, you know, food security and food sovereignty. But then the next day I'm in a space where it's important to talk about WellBuilt bikes. And I don't spend every day at WellBuilt bikes. I don't even spend every day in the like I almost spend none of my days in WellBuilt bikes. And yet when people see me sometimes, I am still an extension of that space.
Yep.
And so needing to manage the complexity of transportation, homelessness, food systems, social enterprise.
1,000 partners, 1,000 relationships. But like for me, and you know what's interesting is because people, I've heard this critique a lot because I've always been this way. I'm just interested in all the things. I want to learn about all the things. I'm well suited to this kind of like what looks very and probably is a bit entrepreneurial ADD, like a little bit all over the place with these things. But in that kind of like, well, what's the, and I actually would say like, yeah, but it's like how, you know, people are like, how are you keeping up with all these different things? And I'm like, well, actually, I think we do one thing. Like, I do think there is like one thing that we do, which I would say is like, we tend to a soil and a culture that is built around builder support. We want to support and empower people that are contributing solutions to the city we want to see made. But then all those people are in different arenas. All those people are building different looking tables, different things that they're doing. But particularly why I think managing complexity came to mind is we open up the drop, and the drop has the resilience coalition space. Like there's space in the drop for different agencies. And we just had another one move in. Now we have a couple different agencies, maybe 3 or 4 that are kind of utilizing the space right now. And then lots of partners that are coming in, and there's like different calendar days that different things are going on. And, you know, we don't have all the tools in place for like proper just building management. Very simple that. But then there's the relational dynamics, and then there's the cultural, even to the part of like the culture we're trying to create here, and like how we're talking about what we're doing and the land. And I'm like, man, it's all like this complex riddle that you're like tending to all the time, and managing that. I wouldn't call myself a manager. I'm not particularly the best at that. So, it's just what I think we've been doing a lot in the work this week.
And you know what's funny is when I was in business school, and this is why I believe nobody should do a master's degree directly out of your undergrad and you should go work in the field first, is they talk a lot about organizational management and organizational psychology. And when I was in school, I was kind of like, okay, whatever, right? Like, what is your leadership type? Like, shut up, whatever. It didn't really make sense to me.
That's
then.
The only stuff in that really fascinates me.
But that's because you are already a grown up versus when I was 21 years old and hadn't worked in enough workplaces or at a high enough level to understand how complex managing can be, and the need to understand the theory behind what you're doing and whatnot. But anyways, now looking back, I'm kind of like, oh, I now would get invested in that kind of psychology.
Oh, if I could set aside time to be in classes like that would be incredible. And if any of you want to sponsor classes like that, I definitely can't pay for them.
But it takes knowing how complex leadership is to value the education of it. And then, even now I'm like, how could you continue to develop? Like, I think anybody in the nonprofit space is uniquely poised to manage complex, diverse teams because it's in the ethos of what we're doing to maintain them as diverse and complex. And so you learn a lot.
It's probably a level of complexity that is like quite foreign to most places.
Yeah.
That's right.
It's
like we're constantly switching gears, and really what you're doing is learning to do like pattern recognition in every arena, where it's like that's like how you're supporting builders in all these places, because like you run into the same topics in different places. But it's good.
But it's complex, nonetheless. Well, this week in Tampa history takes us back to March 13th, 1872, the birth of Horace C. Gordon.
Horace C. Gordon. And Gordon ended up becoming a pretty significant figure in Tampa's early civic life. In 1902, Mayor James McKay Jr. appointed him as a municipal judge.
He later served as a judge in criminal court from 1904 to 1913 before being appointed state's attorney.
He stayed in that role until 1920 when he resigned to run for mayor, and he actually won the election.
But his time at mayor did not last long, and only about 7 months.
Yeah, then in January of 1921, Tampa switched to a mayor-commissioner system of government, and Charles H. Brown became the new mayor-commissioner.
I wonder what that means, like the differentiation.
You know what? I actually would like to have done a little homework on this, because I don't believe I did. We'll have to circle back. We'll have to make a note to circle back on this, because I know we have a strong mayor form of government, but I don't think that this probably predates the form of mayor, because we have a mayoral leadership government with a strong mayor form. But commissioner would almost be like they executive and commissioner would almost be like they would almost be like they